The hissing of steam from the subway grates interrupted the silence of the evening. City lights cast long, menacing shadows over the pavement. Right in front of me, a missing child poster flapped in the breeze. It had been plastered over a lamppost, rain-washed, and barely clinging to it. I had seen that face before. Street vendors sold questionable food, with grease pooling in the grill tops. A thin wisp of smoke emanated from the cart, blending with the city fog. At that hour, only the brave or the foolish roamed the streets. "I told you," a voice sneered, breaking me out of my reverie. I turned to see Marco, an old friend from high school. "Children go missing here every damn week." "And?" I glared. "And nothing," he laughed, taking a drag from his cigarette, the orange glow illuminating his face in a sinister dance. "Just stating the facts." I'd come back to the city after years abroad. Upon my return, the rumors had started. Whispers about children who'd vanished into thin air, never to return. The rumors were suffocating, and their impact on the community was palpable. "Third kid this month," a woman murmured to her friend as they hurried past, clutching their bags tighter, casting suspicious shadows at anyone who dared to make eye contact. "I heard it's a man," said a homeless guy, propped up against a brick wall, a tattered hat placed in front of him with meager coins. "Tall, wears a hat, stalks him, he does." Marco scoffed, exhaling a plume of smoke. "Urban legend. Every city's got one." "Then explain the disappearances," I retorted. He shrugged. "Maybe they ran away. Maybe it's a trafficking ring. Who knows? It's the city. Things happen." My fingers itched to slap the indifference from his face, but the seed of fear had been planted. I started seeing the missing children posters everywhere. Lampposts, bus stops, the mouths of alleyways. One evening, while walking through the park, I saw a group of kids playing. The setting sun cast a golden hue over their innocent faces, their laughter echoing, forming a dark contrast to the tales of horror that loomed large. In the distance, a silhouette stood watching, a man in a hat. I squinted, trying to get a better look, but the figure melted away, almost as if he had never been there at all. The fear grew. Every time I'd heard a child's laughter, my heart would race. Every shadow, every whisper, every creak became a harbinger of doom. The nights were sleepless, the weight of a dark city, secrets that pressed down on me from everywhere. One night I was taking a shortcut through an alley, the familiar sound of children's laughter sending shivers down my spine. I strained my ears, trying to locate the source. It seemed to be coming from an old, dilapidated building, its windows boarded up, a relic from the long-ago past. Against my better judgment, I approached, feeling an inexorable pull. As I neared the entrance, the laughter grew louder, more distinct, but eerily off somehow. It sounded distorted. The front door creaked open, revealing a dark hallway. From within, the giggles continued. My feet moved of their own accord, leading me deeper into that abyss. Each step echoed a rhythmic beat that only seemed to amplify the terror coursing through me. A dim light at the end of the hallway beckoned. The room it led to was bathed in an otherworldly glow. At the center stood a massive mirror, its ornate frame decorated with grotesque faces. The reflection, however, was not my own. Instead, the faces of the missing children stared back, their eyes hollow, their smiles twisted in eternal torment. "Help us," they whispered in unison. From the shadows, a tall figure emerged, the brim of his hat casting a shadow over his face. "Another one for my collection," he mused, his voice dripping with malevolence. I tried to move, tried to scream, to do anything, but my feet were rooted to the spot, paralyzed by an unseen force. As the figure approached, the room grew colder, the children's faces in the mirror growing more desperate. The man's hands reached out, inches from my face, and suddenly a blinding light filled the room, a cacophony of sound, sirens, shouts, the distant wails of a child. The spell was broken. I turned and ran, and never looked back. But the nightmare was far from over. I burst into the open night, gulping in the chill air, the neon city lights blurry through my tears. The horrifying vision in the building was imprinted on my mind. Those children, their faces warped with terror, the tall man reaching out for me. The sirens grew louder, reverberating through the empty streets, only to drown out when I stumbled into Marco, a concerned expression replacing his usual indifference. "What happened?" he panted, grabbing my shoulder. "I followed you when I saw you enter that building." But I could only point back to the cursed structure, my voice a mere whisper. "He's in there." Marco's eyes darted to the building, then back to me. Without a word, he pulled me away, ushering me towards the brighter parts of the city, away from the echoing laughter and the haunting shadows. We found ourselves in a 24-hour diner, the sterile fluorescent light seeming alien after the night's events. I narrated everything, and Marco listened intently, occasionally sipping his coffee. "You're lucky to have gotten away," he muttered, tapping his fingers nervously on the counter. "There are legends, you know, of the man in the hat. They say he traps souls, feeds on the innocent." "But why children?" My voice wavered, and the passing waitress shot me a worried glance. Marco sighed. "Children are pure, their energy's untainted. And urban areas, they're hunting grounds, filled with distractions, making them easy to prey on." Dawn approached as we decided to notify the police. Their skepticism was palpable, yet the consistent disappearances provided some weight to our story. They agreed to inspect the building. What they found sent shivers down my spine, and even the most seasoned officer was rattled a little. Inside that room was the mirror, the atmosphere thick, stifling. The walls were lined with old photographs, each displaying a missing child, their eyes vacant. In the center stood the grand mirror, but it was ordinary now, reflecting nothing but the grim faces of the officers. However, the most disturbing discovery was a room concealed behind thick drapes. Inside, a maze of strings connected pinned pictures, notes, bizarre symbols, each thread intertwined, leading to a single image in the center, a sketch of a man in a hat. Below it, a chilling note: "The city feeds, and so shall I." News spread like wildfire. The city was in an uproar. Vigilante groups formed, vowing to hunt down the man in the hat. Parents held their kids close, and the night saw the streets deserted. Weeks turned into months, but the city's palpable fear remained. The disappearances halted, but the memories persisted, a shadow over every home. One evening, as rain lashed the window panes, I received a call, an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A raspy voice, dripping with malice, whispered, "You escaped me once, but the city never forgets." Frozen, I could only listen as soft, distorted laughter echoed in the background. I slammed the phone down, my heart pounding. The man in the hat wasn't done. The city's nightmare had only just begun. Despite the overwhelming dread, there was a determination that burned within me. I couldn't let this malevolent entity continue his reign of terror. Teaming up with Marco and a group of other survivors, we decided to delve deeper, to unearth the truth behind this urban legend. Our research led us to an ancient myth, stories of an entity that existed in the shadows, thriving on fear. The more that we feared, the stronger they became. Legends spoke of mirrors as portals, realms where these beings would trap souls, feasting on their essence. We needed to destroy the source of the power. We needed to destroy the accursed mirrors. Armed with tools and determination, we made our way to the building. The entrance seemed more foreboding than before, its dark void beckoning us, challenging us. Inside, the silence was oppressive. The mirror room awaited, the large glass surface reflecting our anxious faces. Taking a deep breath, I swung my sledgehammer. The impact sent ripples across the city. Every street, every home, every heart felt that first strike. As cracks appeared, the trapped souls began to break free. The city, once cloaked in darkness, began to breathe again. But it wasn't over yet. From the mirror's depths, the man in the hat emerged, his form more terrifying than any legend could convey. Our final battle had begun. The room's temperature plummeted. Our breaths were visible, forming vaporous clouds in the freezing air. The man in the hat moved with unnatural speed, a mere blur as he lunged at us. Marco and the others tried to restrain him, but it was like fighting a hurricane. His sheer force was overwhelming. His eyes were pools of infinite darkness locked onto mine, and I felt a pull, an overwhelming desire to succumb. Those eyes were a promise of peace, an end to constant dread, but beneath that, a current of benevolence lurked. "Join the others," he hissed, his voice echoing with the pain and sorrow of all his victims. But I wasn't ready to give up. Remembering the research, I shouted, "Don't look into his eyes. He draws strength from our fear." Distracting him with makeshift weapons and tools, we circled the mirror, chanting an ancient spell we had discovered during our research. The room quaked. The very foundations of the building groaned under the force. The mirror's cracks began to grow, each fracture emitting a piercing scream, the collective voice of the trapped souls demanding release. The man in the hat, his strength waning, tried to retreat into the mirror, to escape the onslaught, but our chants grew louder, drowning out his anguished cries. With one final surge of energy, the mirror shattered, sending shards flying in all directions. The room was engulfed in blinding light, a force so potent it threw us back. As the light dimmed, we slowly got to our feet, taking in the aftermath. The man in the hat was gone. In his place was a pile of ashes and a worn-out hat lying on the floor, marking the end of that ancient terror. The walls, once lined with haunting photographs, now displayed blank frames, their tormented occupants finally free. Exhausted, we made our way out, the first rays of dawn painting the city in hues of hope. The streets, for the first time in months, echoed with genuine, joyful laughter. Children played without fear, families reunited. The weight of the dark past slowly faded away. News of our victory turned us into local heroes, but we knew the truth. The city's true heroes were its inhabitants, their collective spirit and hope being the real force that banished the evil. Yet, the city bore the scars, reminders of its tormented past. The once abandoned buildings became a memorial, dedicated to the lost souls, ensuring the city would never forget. Years went by, life moved on, but every now and again on quiet nights, when the city heartbeat slows, whispers rise, of a time when shadows held power, of brave souls who fought back, and of a man in a hat whose reign of terror is no more. However, urban legends have a way of persisting, tales passed down from generation to generation, and while the city had fought off one darkness, who's to say what other horrors lurked in its depths, just waiting for their time to rise? Dear Abby, we've never met before, so this may seem a bit odd, but I feel it's necessary. My name's Jay, for starters. I work the checkout line at the grocery store up on 76th Street. You know the one, with the parking lot that's way too big for the store itself. Yeah, that's the one. I'm 24, fairly tall, and have a rather scraggly appearance. You probably wouldn't recognize me if I came up to talk to you. I don't have a very memorable face. I don't really know why I'm telling you this, to be honest, but that's not the point of me writing. I was working late at night yesterday. It was a very average day for the most part. Nothing too exciting happened, but you'd be surprised how interesting this job can be sometimes. I had been reading some books. The guy that had worked the counter before me left, and it was a really crappy murder mystery, chock full of cliches. Incredibly boring, if you ask me, but it's something to do, I guess. When you showed up, though, my whole night changed. I don't know exactly what it was about you that caught my attention, but as soon as I saw you, I got this odd feeling. A weird mix between excitement and terror. That's the best way I can describe it, at least. I saw you walk into my line, and I quickly composed myself. I had been slouching down in my chair for a while, since I rarely even got anyone in my line. It was only when you got closer that I realized what about you had caught my attention. You were absolutely beautiful. You walked up and said, "Hey," and handed me your cart. I could tell by the way you were talking and the way you were looking that you were pretty sleep-deprived, though this wasn't surprising, considering how late it was. After a second or two of awkward silence, I realized that you'd greeted me. I suddenly forced out a hi in response. I cursed myself out mentally for that one. I sat there for a second, trying to focus. What's your name?" I said. It's only later I realized how odd this must have seemed. What kind of grocery bag guy asks what someone's name is? I'm glad I did, though. I remember you said your name was Abigail, but that you go by Abby for short. Abby. It seemed to fit you perfectly. The name seemed to roll off my tongue as I said it back to myself silently. It was like sweet honey. It just felt good as I said it. You seemed to be perplexed when I looked back at you, and I wondered if I'd done something to upset you. "Shouldn't you be packaging those?" you said, and pointed to my groceries. Suddenly, shocked and embarrassed, I looked up and apologized, then clumsily started shoving groceries into bags as fast as I could. I couldn't believe myself. How stupid could I be? But when I looked up, I realized you were laughing. "You're kind of cute," you said. I tried to play it cool, but I was definitely thrilled. A girl like this thought I was cute. You are too," I said, as I hastily packed the rest of the groceries. As you walked out, you turned towards me as you reached the door and said, "Well, have a good night." I'm guessing I looked pretty stupid writing all this down. You probably still remember it. I mean, it just happened yesterday, but I went home ecstatic that night, and with all the confidence in the world. I feel like it's almost unreal writing it back here. Anyways, I wanted to write you this letter, Abby, to tell you that I love you. I don't know what it was that I felt last night. It was some mix of emotions, but all I know was that even in that small little transaction we had, I felt as if there was something between us. Please write me back soon. Sincerely, Jay. Dear Abby, it's been a week since I sent my last letter and I still haven't gotten a response, but that doesn't matter. How have you been? My life's been just as normal as usual. Get up, go to work, go to bed. I live in a pretty shitty apartment, but I guess that's what you get when you work as a grocery store bagger. I've thought about you a lot lately, and sometimes I wonder if you remember me. I saw you again today at work. This time it was at a more reasonable hour, thankfully. I didn't want to bother you to see if you would approach me on your own. You came to my line again, which made me absolutely thrilled. This time I was less nervous. I was going to act normal, no matter what you did or said. I wasn't going to let a girl like you slip through my fingers. As you walked up, you muttered something that was too quiet for me to make out, and waited at the end of the counter for me to finish packing your groceries. This, obviously, wasn't what I was expecting, but it wasn't all bad. You didn't seem to feel anything at all, actually. I was expecting you to either come up and talk to me or avoid me like the plague. Instead, you just walked on through, as if I was another stranger. This makes me wonder if you got my last letter. You should check your mailbox more often. There was one moment where I felt something, though. I looked over briefly to see what you were doing, and at the same time, you seemed to look up at me to see how far along I was. Right then, our eyes locked. It was only for a second or two, but in those 2 seconds, I saw so much more in you than I had the last time. I felt as if I'd known you for years, but I knew all of your intricate feelings and emotions. Did you feel anything like that with me? Shortly after I'd finished packing your bags, you paid and walked out. Obviously, this was a pretty normal process for me, considering I do it about 50 times every day, but I'd been determined since the night I wrote you that letter that the next time I saw you, I was going to get more of it. I kind of screwed that up. I wasn't satisfied with it. I had to have more. There's a little room in the very back left corner of the grocery store, designated for staff. In there, though, I knew they kept all the security footage from the day. All staff are informed of this and the security camera locations when they're hired. Luckily for me, there's one positioned right next to the counter. I waited until the store closed and everybody had left, then I went in. After flipping through a few of the TV screens, I found the one that was connected to the camera by my counter. I rewound it until about when I remembered you coming in. After a few minutes of scanning, I found it. There you were. I paused on the best still shot I could find. I knew the camera wouldn't do you justice, but it was the best I could have done. Having a longer look at you, I realized how truly perfect you are. Every feature of your body, your hair, your face, your legs, your chest, was just perfection. I rewound the tape to when you'd first come up into my line a few times. I couldn't help myself. My eyes were glued to the screen. After a few minutes of consideration, I popped out the tape and shoved it into my pocket. Then I drove home. I knew I wasn't allowed to. I could very well get fired for taking such actions, but I couldn't help myself. I had to have you with me at all times, even if it meant me losing my job. Abby, I love you. I love everything about you. I think about you constantly. Do you feel the same way about me, Abby? I just want us to be together forever. Right back soon, okay? Yours truly, Jay. Dear Abby, it's been 3 days and I still haven't gotten a reply. Why don't you want to talk to me? I'm still unsure if you got my last 2 letters. Please tell me if you have. So I got fired from my job. They found the missing tape. I got a call from the store owner, my boss, at 6 a.m. on Monday, and was told to come in immediately. They were having a mandatory all-staff meeting, and when I got there, all the staff were gathered around a small table, with the owner at the head of it. Once everyone had arrived, he told us that apparently there had been a minor robbery yesterday. They had about $200 worth of stuff taken from them, and the one tape that would have shown who the culprit was had been taken. Just my luck. He told us that no one was going to leave the room until someone confessed. After a few minutes, I finally gave up. I told him everything. I told him how I felt you and I had a connection of some kind. After explaining the whole story, the entire room was staring at me, wide-eyed. After I finished, I sat there in silence for several minutes. Suddenly, the owner broke the tension. Jay, you're fired. Get out of here now and don't come back. I did as I was told and got out of there as fast as I could. Stupid prick. He's always treating me like this. He's been on my case since the day I got the job. I swear he's just been waiting for me to do one little thing so he could justify firing me. One time I slip up, he finds out. Why doesn't he understand, though? Doesn't he get it? You and I are meant to be with each other. Any rational man could have understood. Anyone put in my situation would have done the same, right? I've been searching you up a lot lately. With no job, I have all the time in the world to spend learning about you. Do you know how much you can find out about someone with a first name and a town of residency? I found out your last name's Marriott. What a beautiful name. Abby Marriott. I can't help but say it aloud whenever I think about you. I also found out you're 24, and you only live a mile away from me. I drove down to your apartment complex today. It looks pretty nice. A lot nicer than where I live. I asked to see you multiple times, but I was told that you weren't there every time. I felt more and more discouraged each time, but I was determined to see you again. After a few hours of asking, I decided to stay back in the parking lot for a while, waiting for you to come back. And after many hours of waiting, you did. It was late at night, around 10, I think. I saw you pull up in your car and get out. I felt a sudden rush of warmth at seeing your face again. I know I have the security tape to look at, but it doesn't compare to seeing you in real life. I made sure to record it for later when I was at home, this time with a much higher quality camera. I wanted to capture as much detail as possible. I didn't know the next time I would see you, and the security tape wasn't enough for me anymore. I asked the woman at the front desk multiple times what your room number was, but she refused to tell me. She thought I was some sort of creep. You see, these people don't understand us. They don't understand how we feel about each other. I ended up waiting in the parking lot a lot longer until someone came out. After talking with him for a bit, he told me what your apartment number was. He didn't want to talk at first, but I made him. You'd be surprised what you can make people tell you when you're holding a knife to their chest. Oh, don't worry. I didn't hurt him too bad. But we can't have someone interfering with us. Don't you agree, Abby? I'm sick of all these people trying to keep us apart. I ended up watching you from the parking lot for a while. Once I found out your room number and how the rooms in your complex were organized, it wasn't hard to locate you. You should be more careful about shutting your blinds, you know. I was easily able to watch you from the parking lot. I can't get you out of my mind. All I do is watch that video I took of you over and over again. Abby, I want to be with you forever. I want to wake up next to you in bed every morning. I can't wait until next time I see you again. Love, Jay. Dear Abby, I have some really exciting news, Abby. I'm moving in with you. Aren't you excited? We can spend every hour of every day together. It'll be perfect. Let me explain. My job paid just enough so I could rent and pay for food every week. Because of this, I had little to no money in savings, nowhere near enough to last a long time. When you take that money flow away, it doesn't take much time until you have nothing left. I was able to get by for a few days, but just today I got evicted. This could actually be better than it would originally have thought. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy that gave me your room number had been able to contact the police by now. This way they won't be able to find me, and we get to spend all the time in the world together. It's perfect, isn't it? I made sure to bring all my tapes and photos I've taken of you, though, and my camera, of course. You should really tell whoever's managing your apartment complex to get better staff. I was able to get by security easily. I went up to your room and knocked on the door, but I didn't get an answer, so I decided to get in by other means. After scanning the footage I took from last night over a few times, I noticed that you have a ventilation shaft in the corner of your room. Not surprising, considering how hot it can get in the summer here. I figured there had to be some kind of maintenance hatch that I could get in through. After a few minutes of looking around, I found a door at the end of your hall that seemed to be some kind of staff room, and lucky there was a way into the vents through there. I crawled through them until I got to your room. It was pretty cramped and hard to move around in, but I managed. When I got through, I felt a rush of success. I figured since the lights were out, I couldn't see you, that you weren't home, but I'm patient. I scanned every part of your room, trying to memorize all the intricate details. Your scent overwhelmed me as I sat there. I had caught it briefly during the 2 times I saw you at the store, but never that strong. It was mesmerizing. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it reminded me of something, almost like peaches. I sat there, hunched over for a few hours, though I've taught myself to be extremely patient. I can sit completely motionless for hours at a time, not moving a muscle. No one was going to notice me. Then you finally got home. I felt a wide smile on my face the second I heard the door open. And there you were, my love. Of course, you took no notice of my presence. The lights in your room seemed to be angled perfectly, so you couldn't see anything in the vent after the first few inches. I tried to contain my excitement, but I started breathing way too heavily. I tried to cover it as best I could, but it was hard. You suddenly looked right at my vent, and I went completely silent. After a few seconds, though, you seemed to lose interest. That made me smile. This was the perfect spot, it seemed. I could tell I had startled you, though. All throughout the night, you were turning over in your sleep to look at the vent. People seem to have a sense for when they're being watched. It can send them into complete panic. Don't try to fake it, Abby. I can tell when someone's awake and when someone's truly scared. When they're truly scared, sleep becomes impossible. Why are you so scared anyway? It's just me. Why would I scare you? You do love me, right? You know I love you. I'm looking forward to spending every day with you now, Abby. Write back if you can. Love, Jay. Dear Abby, I saw you wake up this morning. I didn't sleep a wink last night. You were too enthralling. I spent the whole night watching you. Couldn't help it. Anytime I tried to look away, my eyes seemed to be drawn back a few seconds later. You look even more amazing when you're asleep, you know. You'd be surprised how much you can learn from a person's personality by watching them sleep. I was tempted to get out of the vent and get a better view, but I resisted the urge. I couldn't have you figuring out I'm here. Not yet, at least. You seem to spend a lot of time in your bathroom in the morning. I assume you were taking a shower or putting on makeup. Why would you do that, Abby? Anything you could do to change the way you naturally look would only cover up your true beauty. Why would you want to do that? Don't you want the whole world to see what I see? You left not long after for work. At least, that's what I assumed. After careful consideration, I decided to leave the vent. I slid my hands through one of the slits and felt around for one of the bolts. The surface of the vent was very smooth, which made it easy to find what I was looking for. I grabbed onto one of them and twisted as hard as I could, and finally was able to pop it off. I did this with all the other bolts and finally removed the grating. First thing I did was go over to the bathroom. I quickly disposed of everything I could find that you could use to mask your face. That stuff disgusts me. This way, everyone will get to see how you truly are. I also found something else in there. Your hairbrush. I grabbed it and brought it close to my face to examine it. It was a dull blue with a very thick, rounded handle. But that wasn't what interested me. The hair. That's what made me interested. I took a good few minutes to pull every one of them that I could out and line them up on your counter. I counted them. I'd gotten 59. They pleased me greatly. I quickly scooped them up and put them in my pocket. Spent the rest of the day going through your stuff to learn more about you, your interests and such. I take it you're a big movie fan, Abby. I found your collection in the back of the closet. I have to say, it was quite impressive. I found something else in there that made me mad. A picture of you with another guy. It disgusted me, just looking at him, holding you like he owned you. I'm the only one that can have you, Abby. No one else. At about 8:30, I considered getting back in the vent, since that was usually about the time you got back from work. Then I had another idea. I looked at your bed. The blankets hung low enough to the floor that you couldn't see underneath the bed unless they were lifted up. I first screwed the vent grating back on and slowly slid under with a smile on my face, waiting for you to get home. When you finally came in, you looked completely pale, and I noticed someone else came in behind you. They were talking to you about hearing noises coming from your room throughout the day. I mentally yelled at myself. I would need to be more careful from now on. Going under the bed had been a good idea, though, since obviously your first thought was to check the vent. You thanked the person, and they left. Finally, you and I were alone. I sat there in the silence until you went to bed. It seemed to be an eternity before you did. I wanted to get a closer look at you tonight, and this was my chance. You got in bed and turned off the light. I was cautious, though. I waited for hours to make sure you were asleep, and when I was sure that you were, I slowly slid out from under the bed, and I saw you there. You looked absolutely stunning. Every curve of your body was perfect. Every little detail was beautiful. I was in awe just looking at you. I reached out my hand and started to stroke your face. It was soft like silk. I felt myself becoming excited. Your beauty was just overwhelming. I'm not ashamed of what happened next, but I'll save the details from your delicate sensibilities. Suddenly you seemed to turn and started to wake up. Horrified, I quickly slid back under the bed, trying to be as quiet as possible. A few seconds later, I saw you get out of bed and look around. I could sense your fear, even without looking at you. You should feel calm with me, Abby. I'll protect you. No one will ever touch you but me. I'd kill someone for you, Abby. I made sure to pay attention today. You didn't bring in my letters from yesterday or any mail at all. You must have not checked your mailbox. I'm going to change that, though. I'm going to leave this one on your desk tomorrow. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm making something special for you. Check in your closet after you read this. Yours forever, Jay. Dear Abby, I spent more time today working on the surprise while you were at work. You're really going to love it. I've put a lot of work into it, you know. I spent a few hours today putting the finishing touches on it, and I think it's finally ready for you to see. You got home at about 8:30 again and saw the letter laying on your desk almost immediately. I started to smile as you opened it, waiting to see your reaction. It was really quite interesting watching your face. I could see all the different emotions and thoughts. You seemed to be confused at first, then shocked, then horrified. You started to shake violently, and I saw that you were crying. Do you not like me, Abby? Why were you crying? Don't you love me? Don't you love me, Abby? Everything after that was a blur. You looked over to the closet while sobbing. You seemed to be contemplating whether to open it or not. Instead, you ran past it and out the door. When you came back, you had all my letters in your hand and started going through them. At some point, You seemed to break down and curl up on the floor, tears still rolling down your face. I could tell you were desperately trying to say something, anything, but you were paralyzed with fear. After about 10 minutes, you took a look under the bed, in the vent, anywhere that I could be. You see, though, Abby, I'm smarter than that. I knew you'd look in those places. I found a better place after I finished your surprise. You'll never find me here. No one will. Isn't it great? I can watch you forever and ever, and there's nothing you or anyone else can do about it. You haven't found your surprise yet, though, Abby, and I could tell that you were still thinking about it. I saw you look over at the closet. I knew you wanted to open it, but at the same time, you were nervous. What was going to be in there? What would you find? This couldn't last forever, though. You and I both knew that. I watched you slowly walk over to the closet, fumbling with the handle, trying to get a firm grip on it. Suddenly, you flung the doors open and saw it. It was a scrapbook of me and you. I saw you flipping through the pages. You seemed to be shocked. Don't you like it, Abby? I got pictures of you and I when you weren't looking. Pictures of you sleeping. Pictures of you at your computer. I'd scattered the hairs I'd collected throughout, along with the pictures of couples together, of course, with our faces on them. I got that picture of you with the other guy and put it at the very back, except I didn't leave it like it normally was. I scratched his face off. I hate him so much. If I knew who he was, I'd hunt him down and make him suffer. Don't you get it, Abby? No one can have you but me. Me and you, we're meant for each other. No one else. I watched you sob for about 30 minutes and then get up and run out of the apartment. Shortly after, you came back with multiple policemen. That shocked me. Did you not like the surprise, Abby? Why would you bring these people into your room? They'll never find where I am, but if they did, it could ruin everything. All my work from the last few weeks would be for nothing. You wouldn't want that, right, Abby? I'm exhausted from today's work, and as much as I love you, I need to sleep, Abby. Have a good night. I love you. Jay. Dear Abby, do you see? Do you see what you've done, Abby? Do you see what you've done? I woke up at 8 a.m. to see you frantically packing your bags. I was confused at first, but then I understood. You were leaving me. You don't love me. You don't love me. How could you do this to me, Abby? You were the only thing I wanted in life. I had nothing else to live for. But when I first met you, I saw a shimmer of hope. I thought that I'd finally have a reason to wake up in the morning and go on with my life. And you went and threw that away. How could you do this to me, Abby? A few seconds after you left your room, I got out of my hiding spot and followed behind you. I saw you throw your bags into the back and then get in your car and drive away. I wasn't going to let you get away, though, Abby. No, I would never let that happen. I ran as fast as I could to your car and smashed out the windows and dragged you out. Did you really think you could get away from me, Abby? I had to hit you over the head to knock you out. You were making too much noise. Someone else, someone that doesn't understand, could have seen and ruined everything. Well, I had a plan for if you reacted like this. I drove out to the storage unit at the edge of town. I reserved a slot the day I decided to move in with you. I drove up and unlocked it. I grabbed you and carried you inside with me. It had only been a few minutes, so you were still unconscious. I made sure to check through your pockets to make sure you didn't have a phone with you. I sat you down at the very back of the small room, then I got in and lowered the door. I called the owner of the storage unit and told him that I had visited my lot the other day and forgot to lock it up. I asked him if he'd mind locking it for me. Of course he said he would, and I hung up. I threw my phone on the ground and stomped on it then, to make sure that it'd never work again. Shortly after, I heard the owner come up and lock the door. About an hour later, I saw you start to get up. I first heard a very faint grunt, and then I saw your legs start to move. Shortly after, you were fully awake. When you saw my face, you started to scream, which then subsided to a whine, then to a whimper. That's when you saw it. The one other thing in the room. My knife. It was obvious why it was there, and after a second or two of realization, you jumped up and grabbed it. I looked you dead in the eye and said, "Abby, I love you." Then I felt the searing pain of the knife being driven into my side. I felt it being pulled out and jabbed back in with great force. I could feel it go in each time like a fire burning a hole through my chest. I fell to the floor, laughing, while coughing up blood. I saw you back away, trembling, and sit back down in the corner. And now, as I sit here in a puddle of my own blood writing this, I wonder how you'll go out. Will you use the knife to take your own life? Will you let starvation get you? Either way, we'll be together in death, Abby. Together from the day I saw you till the day we both die, just like I wanted it. As you sit there, crying, I can tell you've come to the same realization. Abby, this is all I ever wanted, and for that, I have to say thank you. Love, Jay. I died in 1941, shortly after my daddy went off to war. I was just 15 and already sick when he was drafted. I think Mama knew I wasn't going to make it, and she begged Daddy to find a way out of the draft. I don't know if he tried or not, only that he left, and then I died a few weeks later. Mama took it hard. I watched her fall apart from behind the walls of our house. It was, at one point, a nice house. Then the letter came, saying that Daddy was killed by a Nazi's bullet. Mama couldn't take that at all. My Aunt Charlotte took Mama in to live with her, which probably saved her life. Sadly, I've lost touch with Mama since then. I suppose odds are pretty high that she's dead too by now. I think all the heartbreak around Daddy and me dying trapped my soul in this old house. And since Mama never sold it, I doubt she could have borne to. No one ever moved in. If she's dead, she apparently didn't will the house to anybody. It's still abandoned by all but me. It's a little ways out of town, trees and bushes that were just saplings when I was breathing are big, wild things now. They've never been pruned, not once. I can't go outside the house to have a look, but I bet it isn't even visible from the road. I'd guess the bank owns this place now, and they've just decided to let it rot. You know what, though? I'm glad. Because being in an old abandoned house is the only way I get to have any fun. How? The teenagers, friend. Teenagers started sneaking in here on dares back in the early 90s, right as the paint was beginning to peel. First, they threw rocks through all the windows. I didn't appreciate that, although I could see the fun in it. I haven't aged a day since I died, so I'm still a 15-year-old spirit. Ha! The very First pair who actually snuck in here were a couple of guys just older than me who were dared by their giddy girlfriends. As they crept around, these guys were whispering about whether or not the house was haunted. So I slammed the door and sent them running and screaming. Over time, I gave this place a reputation as a bona fide haunted house. Round October, each year, kids come from other towns even to experience my knocking and slamming. They all thought they could handle it, but I sent every one of them scurrying off. Something changed in the early 2000s. The teens started seeming less afraid of me, more curious. I couldn't scare them off as easily, which was fine since I enjoyed having them around. But they also started trying to talk to me. They bring in tape recorders and cameras to try to capture the stuff I do. I was always careful not to make anything move on camera, though. I liked how everyone else just had to take the kids I scared at their word. Providing proof of myself would have ruined the mystique. Some of the teenagers brought weird energy into the house. It was like having somebody track mud across the clean floor. Except instead of mud, it was anger, depression, jealousy, all sorts of ugly things. One thing you learn when you're dead is emotions are very tangible. They have a charge like a magnet or a battery. The right charge gives me energy, makes the house sort of hum. Some of the teens call it the house's aura or vibe. But if you bring the wrong charge in here, something too negative, messes everything up. I feel tired. The house feels older, and sometimes I can sense things moving outside. I don't mean outside like in the yard. I mean outside my spiritual periphery. See, ghosts like me are not the only type of spirit. There's some really dark stuff out there. Those dark spirits, well, they're attracted to negative energy. I sense them lurking, feel them sniffing out the anger and jealousy and sadness in here. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only thing keeping them out of this space. I am, in spite of everything, a pretty positive guy. There's one object which I will never ever allow into this house again. Whenever I see one, I immediately do something really scary, like make footsteps right behind the teenagers or brush at their hair. I do whatever I can to get them out of here. The object in question is something called a Ouija board. I had never seen or heard of such a thing until the day I almost watched some poor kid lose his soul and might have almost lost my house to an evil spirit. That, friend, after all of this existence, is a story I would like to tell you today. They came in a foursome: Gavin, Lily, Emma, and Roland. Gavin and Lily were the ghost enthusiasts. They came in with all the presuppositions one would expect from a couple of kids who think they know everything about a subject in which nothing is really known to the living. Emma didn't seem nearly as enthusiastic about the visit, even though she was the real empath in the group. That'll come in real handy for me later. You'll see. Now Roland made me uneasy. See, styles and fashion have changed so much since my time that I have difficulty reading people based on their appearance anymore. For example, 30 years ago, if someone crept in here at night wearing a pair of tattered jeans, I'd have assumed they were a junkie that needed to be chased out before they got too comfortable in my house. Nowadays, everybody's wearing jeans that look ready to fall apart. They're all the rage, as I've heard being hip called at one time or another. All this to say, I have to judge people by stuff that's intangible to the physical world, but potent to me. These things are like someone's mental balance or spiritual harmony. The closest thing I can compare these things to are smell, but you don't get them through your nose. You just kind of pick it up, much like when you drive by a hog farm and before you realize it, you're aware you're breathing in pig stink. Roland's pig stink comprised of grief, insecurity, and anger, disdain for the world and everything in it. I'm not a psychic, but I assumed right away that Roland had lost someone very close, probably recently. Roland had the spiritual posture of someone who's been personally insulted by death. The foursome crept around for a while, and I let him be. I wanted to feel him out. Between Emma's empathic abilities and whatever was going on with Roland, I guess I was sort of nervous about this bunch. Eventually they went upstairs and ended up in my room, of all places. The very room in which I died back in 41. That's when Lily pulled out the Ouija board, and I studied it while they all got comfortable. But I didn't really understand how it worked. Not until Gavin put this little triangle on the board that he called a planchette. Seeing the hole in the middle of the planchette, I understood how the letters on the board were laid out for spelling. The corners designated for yes or no. I found it a little strange that the board had a space for goodbye, but not one for hello. Anyway, I've become a master of suspense over the years, so I let the group play for a few minutes without a response. You know, what finally made me move the thing was that I wasn't sure I could. I wanted to find out. Started by just sliding it a tiny bit, not spelling anything or questioning and asking them anything. Boy, did that get my new friends excited. "Are you doing that?" Lily asked Emma, then Roland. Both shook their heads. Lily and Gavin shared a look. Then, all theatrically, she asked, "What's your name, spirit?" I could have spelled out something like Beelzebub or even Satan, but you have to build up to those sorts of things. Instead, I gave them my real name, B.O.B., Bob. I always went by Robert in life, but, well, Bob spells quicker. "Hi, Bob," Gavin said, after the group simmered down. "We've come here respectfully to try to get your story. We want to know about who you were, and if you'll tell us what the afterlife is like." "Well, Gavin, it's pretty fun because I get to mess with people like you," I thought, as I slid the planchette straight to no. I was trying to put myself in mind of a dark spirit, and I imagined such a thing would be pretty standoffish. "Oh, okay," Lily said. "Is there anything you do want to tell us?" "Can you ask it about, Roland said. "Well, we'll get there, don't worry," Gavin put in. I made him wait a few more seconds, then I slid the planchette around to spell not safe. Oh, spooky, right? I told you I was good at this. I'd never used an Ouija board before, but same rules applied. Take it slow, keep it vague, give them lots of time to speculate and doubt themselves. "Not safe?" Gavin asked, but more to the group than to me. Roland squirmed like he couldn't get comfortable, or like he knew something he wasn't sharing. His pig stink bloomed around him, billowing out of the top of his head like a smokestack. I didn't like it. "Guys, can I be honest?" Emma asked. "I've actually been feeling a little unsafe, like something's off here. Maybe we should listen to what the board's saying." "Oh, Emma, no, don't spoil the fun." I guess she was picking up on her friend Roland's negative energy, but she was attributing it to me, attempting to come across like someone warning the group of danger, rather than threatening the danger myself. So I moved the planchette around to spell trapped. As the group clamored about what that might mean, I decided to shake Gavin and Lily's confidence. I hovered over them both, plucked one hair from each of their heads. This took an immense amount of energy from me, but it was worth it. Both folded neatly in half on the floor. Then I dropped both their hairs onto the Ouija board. Pandemonium ensued. Gavin jumped to his feet. Lily slid back, elbows tripping. The other two stayed put, but sat up, stiff as corpses. All four were shouting and cursing and swearing. Do you want to hurt us? Emma asked, and dang it, I would have slid it to yes when they all touched the planchette again, if anyone else had asked, but I couldn't do that to poor Emma. I liked her. She seemed sweet, and the fact that she had a connection with the spirit realm, well, reminded me of how it felt to have my crush assigned as my lab partner in high school. It didn't mean anything was going to happen between us, obviously. That would be ludicrous given my terminal case of death, but it made it feel more possible, I suppose. Like I said, I'm still 15. I slid the planchette to no. Can I ask something? That was Roland. Gavin gestured at him to go ahead after he sat back down. Have you been following me? Before I could answer, I felt myself pushed backwards by a soft but unmistakably powerful presence. The room's weight suddenly doubled. I'd never felt anything like this before. I'll never know what the living teens felt, but they all removed their hands from the planchette and leaned away from the board at the same moment. I stretched forward to move the planchette, realizing only later how that might have been the scariest thing I did that night. They all sat transfixed as I pushed the planchette around to spell careful. I wasn't trying to scare them, but I did worry a healthy dose of fear might be appropriate. I sensed movement from Roland's direction. He was looking down, staring at his own chest. Emma watched him closely. I believe she sensed what I saw. A shadow copy of Roland stood, rising from his body. At full height, he protruded from the boy's shoulders and neck. It stood well over 6 feet. It looked directly at me, held my gaze as it metamorphosed. Besides bearing Roland's general shape, it looked nothing like him. It was absolutely inhuman, with cheeks so thin and sunken I could see its jagged teeth outlined beneath the leathery skin. The eyes which held me were sunken far into the skull and as small as BBs, but they glowed brighter than anything else. The thing's smoky claws now commanded the planchette. Remember, Roland had asked the board if he was being followed. I was going to answer no before I was forced away by the new dark spirit. The dark spirit dragged the planchette towards yes, causing an anxious stir amongst the teenagers. It spelled safe now. The dark spirit's paper-thin lips parted slightly, and I could see pointed teeth as black as the rest of it. Okay, that's good, Lily said. It says it's been following you, but that you're safe now, so that must mean it's like protecting you. Yeah, that's definitely a good thing, Gavin agreed. No, Gavin, no, Lily, it's not a good thing, I screamed at them, but of course they couldn't hear me. Emma glanced my way, though. The planchette started moving again, guided by the smoky claw of the figure protruding from Roland's back. It spelled Roland's name. Emma gripped his arm as if to anchor him. Then the dark spirit spelled out the cruelest, most obscene lie yet. It's Mom. Again, the terrible figure sneered at me. I was now convinced that it was a demon. Emma's grip morphed into a sideways hug as she pulled poor Roland towards herself. He started crying. The other two exchanged nervous whispers, too quietly for even me to hear. The planchette began to move again, but I summoned every kilowatt of energy I could to reach through the pressure force field and stop it. The demon growled at me, and with a too long arm, it swept me away. I spun backward like an astronaut through space. Emma sensed all of this. Still hugging Roland, she looked just above his head, exactly where the glowing demon protruded. "Mom, why did you do it?" Roland asked, voice choked by heartbreak. How could you just leave us like that?" This was real bad. I apologize for delaying what happened next, but you need to understand some things about death. See, there are different kinds of death. Mine was natural, but premature by natural standards. That sort of discrepancy, when combined with my mother's intense grief, created the environment which trapped me here. A death by human hands, be it murder or suicide, tears a hole through the separation between the living and the dead, like a bullet punched through paper. The holes take a long time to heal, if it ever does, and while it's open, just about anything can pass through. All this to say, the demon which had infested Roland had probably crawled through the hole left by his mother and attached itself to him. I bet it offered comfort at first, but judging by Roland's demeanor, even before the Ouija board session, it had already started getting mean. Classic demon trickery. If it could convince Roland to welcome it by pretending to be his mother's ghost, there's no telling how far it could take the possession. It might even kill Roland and harvest his soul. So when we left off, Roland, believing he was talking to his mother, had just asked how she could leave him. The demon began to answer, but I focused on getting the teens to safety. If I couldn't save Roland, then I wanted to at least try to protect the others. I'll admit, in the back of my mind, I was wondering what would happen if that demon fully manifested in my house. It had already demonstrated immense power over me, and that frightened me, for my own safety too. In the corporeal world, demons enter people. They dwell inside them and control them. Demons don't have that sort of use for us. Instead of possessing, they envelop and dominate us. They show us how little power and control we really have. I circumvented the group until I was behind Emma. That also put me right next to the demon, but it was occupied with the planchette, or maybe it didn't see me as a threat. Emma was the key. Her empathetic ability was the only tool I had left, but I wasn't sure how to use it. She'd shown that she could hear me, but could she understand? I didn't think so. I wondered if she might sense my touch. Keeping an eye on the demon, I took hold of Emma's free wrist, the one that wasn't on Roland's shoulder. She immediately flinched away. I understood why, but that didn't make it any less frustrating. I tried again, this time only touching the back of her hand, and I projected my desire to save her and her friends. I even whispered to her, "I'm here to protect you." At least one of these tactics worked, and Emma allowed my hand to stay. I slid my thumb behind hers so I could gently guide her hand to the Ouija board. "No, Emma, leave it alone," Gavin said. "God, that idiot, purporting to be so keen on the spirit world, yet being so dully insensitive to it." I could have punched him. I gave Emma a reassuring squeeze, which she emphatically understood. I guided Emma's hand towards the word goodbye at the bottom of the board and gave her another squeeze, then let her go. I felt confident that she would know what to do. "Guys, I think we need to end this," she said, her hand hovering over goodbye. "No!" Roland shouted, a deep anger boiling beneath his voice. "It's not his mother," I whispered to Emma, and thanked the Lord she could understand me. Enough to matter, at least. Emma now pleaded with Gavin and Lily. We need to end this session right now, guys. Something's really wrong. I can feel it. I need to talk to her, Roland argued. Roland, I don't think your mom is talking. I think it's something bad, Emma said, turning to him. Yeah, she might be right, Lily said. Before it said it was your mom, it was telling us we weren't safe and all that, remember? Words can't describe how grateful I was to hear my silly prank may have saved the day. Oh, yeah, spirits do lie to get what they want sometimes, Gavin said. I can feel her, though, Roland whispered, but he sounded unsure. Emma's hand went to the planchette. Again, the demon's shadows clawed. I noticed her hand was outlined by a faint white aura. Whatever energy gave Emma her emphatic ability was something wholesome and beautiful. It forced the demon to retract angrily, almost like it had been burned. Gavin touched the planchette again, then Lily. They all looked at Roland, but he didn't move. Emma took his hand in her free one and pulled it towards the planchette. He still clearly did not want to end the session, but he allowed this to happen. They all four of them were touching the planchette. Emma slid it to goodbye, and as if it had never been there, the demon vanished. I whispered thanks to Emma, but closing the session had dulled her connection to me. I'll admit this made me a little sad, despite the victory we had won. The teenagers left shortly after, and I haven't seen them since. That must have been, 10 years ago now. It's hard to keep track. Roland didn't seem any lighter when he left that night. Unfortunately, I have to assume that he still had the attachment. But with a friend like Emma by his side, I hope he's been able to rid himself of it. Can't imagine she would have let him go on like that. The white light I saw around her hand made it easy to believe she saved him. And, like I already mentioned, Ouija boards aren't allowed in my house anymore. These days, kids are using all kinds of electronic equipment, though, and the Ouija board seems to be getting less popular. That's good. You just can never know what's really talking to you with one of those things. It could be a swell guy like me, or could be something much, much darker. It's best just to keep those channels closed. You can't ever really know who or what is speaking to you from the other side. Not again, screamed Ricky, after opening the much-anticipated email. He cursed as he picked up the expensive mouse and threw it against the wall, slamming his fist down on the top-of-the-line gaming keyboard and shattering it. Ricky continued to stare at the message, the words mocking him from his computer screen. The message was topped with a large header and white font that stood in contrast to the black background. Right there, the two hated words said, "Story deletion." Ricky was too familiar with those words. In fact, he would have been able to recite the entire message from memory by now. Story deletion. Your story has been deleted because it doesn't meet the quality standards. If you feel that it did meet the standards, please state your case on deletion appeals. Make sure you follow the instructions to the letter, or your appeal process will be automatically denied. Do not attempt to re-upload your story. If you upload it again, you will receive a 1-day ban from editing, as per the rules. Ricky loves scary stories. He came from a culture rich in the history of the supernatural and the macabre. The only thing he loved more than scary stories was writing scary stories. Sadly, that was the problem. How did he put it? Well, the truth of the matter was that our friend Ricky, for lack of a better word, was a bad writer. There was zero talent in the poor boy's head, and the same could be said for his imagination as well. His characters had no substance, his grammar was atrocious, his plot development was non-existent, and his word choices, well, They were infantile. In fact, you could go so far as to say that you've probably seen pigeon droppings with more interesting narrative consistency than Ricky's stories. But I digress. What is truly sad about this whole ordeal was that Ricky truly believed his stories were good. Not just good, in fact, he thought they were great. The dark and sinister entries that inhabited the world he created were far superior to anything seen in movies or found on the internet, or so he believed. His dark tales were capable of tapping into the primordial pool of terror buried deep in everyone's subconscious mind. That's what he expected his readers to find from one of his works. Whereas you and I would see it for what it was, a juvenile, uninspiring piece of crap. Some had even gone so far as to say that his stories are so bad, looking at the words for too long could give you pink eye. One boy claimed, after being forced to listen from beginning to end, that Ricky's story gave him an ear infection. Whether any of that is true or not, it's well known that once you finish reading a story authored by Ricky, you're actually dumber than when you began reading. Brain cells literally drop dead in the middle of whatever brain cells do in the brain. And believe me, it's not just a few. It's a lot of them. Worse still was that Ricky wouldn't hear it. He didn't like rejection, and he already had it in his head that they're not even reading his story. He's convinced they don't even bother to give it the time of day, and automatically delete it. The tantrum builds, and his cheeks turn red as he screams out loud, "Why would they not listen to me? They never listen to me. They never give me a chance." He knows that to be true, especially in consideration of how they treat him and what they say about his stories. He angrily reads the comments. Bad grammar and punctuation. But I'm new to this site. Can't you just tell me what to fix or fix it yourself? Misspelled words. It's the way my character speaks. Poorly written and awkward sentences. English isn't my first language, so give me a chance. The story isn't creepy. What do you mean it's not creepy? There's a witch in the story. How's that not scary? You see, Ricky is a spoiled kid from a well-to-do family. He's never had to go without, never had a demand that wasn't met, never had his ungrateful heart been denied a single request. There was nothing he could not have in his pampered life. However, with such a luxurious lifestyle, he also never had to aspire or dream for greater things. Despite its value, all the objects of his desire were carelessly tossed to the side or forgotten when the interest was lost. They meant nothing to him. Eventually, Ricky turned that frustration outward upon those who were weaker and less capable of standing up for themselves. For every insult, every slight, every time that he did not get what he wanted, he inflicted that rage upon the innocent bystanders 10 times over. He terrorized all the children within his sight. Well, tonight, that will all change. That's why I have been sent. This is my charge from me, la Dama. Tonight, I will reveal to him the story of his people and enlighten him about where he comes from. I bring knowledge under cover of night and carry revelations on the tip of my tongue. With his last breath, he will learn the final lesson. Thou shalt not suffer the cries of a spoiled child. So when the boy laid his head upon his pillow and closed his eyes to sleep, he would be unaware of the small leather pouch tucked ever so carefully beneath him. It will call out to her. It will summon her, and she will come. She will drink, even though her thirst for revenge can never be slaked. She will feed her hate, though her hunger can never be satisfied. To understand the events soon to pass, you must look to the past. Know this, the more days that go by, the more things stay the same. Long ago, the people of Mexico suffered from the deeds of corrupt men and endured the cruelty of the true rulers of the land, the cartel. While savagery and brutality swept across the plains and darkened the skies like a cloud of locusts, a small village near the city of Catemaco, Mexico, prospered. It remained a tranquil safe haven, untouched by evil men. In those days, the villagers were weak and vulnerable. They could not defend themselves against the powerful and corrupt men infected with sickness of greed. Government and town officials lined their pockets with the sweat and blood of the poor. No justice or protection ever came for the people. Farmers' crops were plundered and destroyed. Workers were kept in constant poverty. Their sons would be taken against their will by the banditos to replenish their numbers. Alas, it was the daughters of Mexico who suffered the most. Many mothers and fathers could only mourn before a single lit candle, for there was no body to bury for the funeral. They would live their lives never knowing what became of their beloved children. Too many shallow graves sprinkled the countryside with the bones of unnamed girls. Among the violence, all but one village suffered. Those of questionable character, with darkness in their hearts, would not dare enter the border of this town, for its people were under the protection of a powerful curandero. Her name was known from afar, and her magic was strong. The evil men knew this to be true, and they would not risk her wrath upon them. This ate away at their egos, and soon they began to conspire amongst themselves. In secret and darkened rooms, they plotted how to rid themselves of the meddlesome woman. Early one morning, the curandera woke to the sound of children's cries. It was not a cry of terror, but a cry of pain. She ran out of her small house to see a boy sitting on the dirt path that ran alongside her home. Next to him was an old bike. Hitched to the rear wheel was a weathered cart carrying a large wooden box. He sat crying on the ground, clutching both his arm and his leg. Even from a distance, she could see the two painful welts upon the boy's skin. The curandero knew precisely what had happened and took a glass jar of salve from her shelf. She went out to the boy and warmly asked, "What's the matter, little boy?" No answer came from the boy. A little infuriated, she asked again, "Did something sting you? Was it an ant or a wasp?" Again the boy said nothing. The curandera was becoming annoyed. She looked carefully at the boy who sat silently before her. From the clothes he wore, she knew that he was a rich man's son, most likely a child of an elected official or a member of the town elite. She gently applied the medicine to the two painful stings. The skin was hot and bright red, surrounding the lump the size of a grape. When she finished, the boy simply turned and jumped on his bike and pedaled away without a word. This angered the curandera, and she made a mental note. In the very near future, someone would need to teach this boy some manners and the importance of respecting his elders. Shortly thereafter, the curandera went about her day and forgot about the rude little boy. That night, after she had laid her head down to sleep, she awoke to a loud bang. The door had been broken down by several large men. They bound her hands and gagged her mouth to prevent any chance that she might utter a hex upon them. They took her wand, made from sacred wood, and snapped it in two. They removed her medicine bag from around her neck, leaving the poor woman completely defenseless. The men dragged her before the town's clergy, who were the most corrupt of them all. Denying any opportunity to defend herself, the curandero was accused of witchcraft and blamed for this year's drought and poor harvest. They said she was in league with the devil and proclaimed her to be a Bruja. They sentenced her to death, the onlookers cheering upon hearing the verdict. She looked across the crowd and mourned for what she saw. The faces that she had known for so long, those faces who came to her when they were sick or needed healing, were gone. In their place were a hateful and dark-filled eye, filled with the bloodlust of an angry mob. She stood on the platform next to a short, thin coffin that stood upright. The crowd shouted and jeered as they grew impatient. She closed her eyes and tried to center herself amongst the shouts and sweats and insults. The curandera began to pray. She prayed the Holy Mother would deliver her. She begged and pleaded to her for protection. She pleaded with all her might. She begged the Holy Mother with desperation, proclaiming her good deeds done and her righteous life she had lived. Only silence greeted her, though. The crowd suddenly grew quiet, and the curandera opened her eyes. She saw the crowd separate in the middle and make a path for a little boy. The familiar child rode an old bike and pulled a cart with a box. He dismounted the bike and walked over to the rear, opened the box, and sat upon the cart as he carefully removed a large burlap sack. He held the bag at arm's length and quickly brought it out, showing the contents to the clergyman. As the man of God took hold of the sack, the boy looked up at the woman, smiled, and disappeared into the sea of bodies. Still bound, she was marched relentlessly to the edge of town. All the way she was beaten and humiliated by the people who followed along. She was brought before a freshly dug grave and shoved hard into the open coffin. She stared up at the man, who mocked her from above. Just as they were about to seal the coffin shut, the clergyman held out a large hand with a burlap sack. He flung the bag into the coffin, and the men quickly nailed it closed. The men picked up the coffin containing the curandera and dropped her into the dark hole. The sound of dirt covering the coffin was thunderous. She lay terrified in the dirt patch. Just before the light had been extinguished, she had seen what had been tossed in with her. At her feet lay the largest wasp nest that she had ever seen. Soon she felt hundreds of thin legs beginning to crawl over her body. They angrily explored the dark prison as they searched for the one who had dared to disturb them. Time slowed as the curandera waited for the first sting to strike her. Once again, she prayed to the Blessed Mother for protection, and still there was only silence. Pain from the first sting exploded over her right cheek. The sharp stingers were stabbed into her flesh. It tore through the skin and went as deep as it could. The wasp contracted its abdomen, pumping in venom. It pulled out the sharp tip and again jabbed the stinger back into her flesh, for the wasp can use its stinger over and over again. Even if they've exhausted their venom, they will not stop piercing the skin. She screamed in pain as she was stung again and again. They stung her eyes and crawled into her open mouth and stung her tongue. The insects crawled down her throat and into her ears. Venom filled her veins, and her skin turned red as it swelled and burned. The wasp's poison saturated her blood, causing it to thicken and burn. The swelling cut off her breathing, and she began to convulse. The angry little beasts began to stab her more relentlessly. Not a single spot on her body was spared from the wasp's sting. The pain continued to grow. She was about to call out to the Virgin Mother when she stopped herself. Betrayal and abandonment hit her deeply, causing more agony than a wasp could bestow. Anger and hate consumed the woman. She knew what she had to do. She would call out to another deity. The deity would come. She would call out for Santa Muerto. The curandera lay motionless in the dark, wheezing and gasping for air. Her stings upon her skin were stretched until it tore from swelling. The swarm of insects continued to poke and jab with their long stingers. The buzzing of their wings was deafening. Then suddenly, all was silent. The scraping of long fingernails traveled down the side of the coffin. The curandera tried to open her eyes, but her face was so bloated. It mattered not. She had no sight, as the wasps had penetrated her eyelids and filled her eyes with venom. The scraping stopped, and the curandera heard the low and ancient voice of a woman. What's the matter, my daughter?" The crowd had not yet dispersed when the ground began to shake. The men had lingered and were congratulating themselves and laughing when the ground suddenly opened up. Black thorns emerged from the soil where she had lain, and the dirt blackened with decay. All was still for a moment, until a deep, inhuman moan was heard from the sky. It called to its new disciple beneath the ground. The villagers cowered when the low voice boomed from the crack that spread out from the spot of the woman's unholy grave. "I curse you. I curse your children. They will taste the venom that now flows through my veins. When I hear a child cry, I will come. I will come to your children. They will feel my sting. I will nest within a home made from their skin. I will use their bones for stirring my brew. I will quench my thirst with their tears. I will dance to a melody made from the symphony of their screams." She let out one final wail of demonic rage until only the sound of wasp wings could be heard. 3 days later, the traitorous boy, helped by the Corandra, disappeared without a trace. It was fate that brought the two together. He had been tasked with finding a wasp nest. It was by chance that 2 of the insects escaped and stung the boy near the woman's home. She had shown him mercy, and he had repaid her with rudeness and betrayal. An empty bed was all they found, except for the small pouch hidden underneath his pillow. Within, they found it held only a piece of paper wasp nest, ash, and a lock of hair cut from the boy's own head. She still keeps a part of him on her at all times, even to this day. As time went by, more and more of the children disappeared. Eventually, like the righteous Corandra, the little village died slow and painfully. The people in that area still speak of the dark Bruja. It's told that when the day shortens and the nights grow cold, the children must be especially good and obedient, for if a child is spoiled and shows no respect, the Bruja will find him. They say she is dressed all in black and wears a cloak made of wasps. She can fly long distances and climb up walls. She will tap on your window and tempt the child to let her in. Her nails will click and tap on the window pane until the child hears her voice from out in the darkness. So that is the story of La Bruja. She is the one I serve. She is my lady, and I serve her well. I find those children who are spoiled and rotten. I find the ones most deserving of the fate my lady brings. Who am I? Well, let's just say I am someone who is familiar with matters such as these. But that is a story for another day. However, I will tell you this: I am neither angel nor demon, but I perform God's will. I bring balance. That is my mandate from heaven. The Bruja has no mercy. She holds dark and powerful magic, fueled by an inexhaustible source of hatred. I direct that hatred to those deserving of it. Such hatred and wickedness cannot be allowed to roam free and go unchecked. I ensure the innocents are protected, and the wicked are punished. So listen to my words, boys and girls. Do what you are told. Honor your mother and father. Be on your best behavior. You don't want to end up like little Ricky here, now do you? Take heed, for if you do not, there will come a night when you will hear tapping at your window. As the buzzing of 1,000 wings fills your ears, you will hear the low voice of a woman asking, "What's the matter, my child?" It all started slowly, as all wonderful and awful things do. At first, a few dark spots here and there, especially on the wall facing the street. I also started suffering from a shallow cough, especially at night. But I didn't mind. I was too busy trying to live the American dream. Moving to the U.S. was always my dream. To achieve it, I had to deal with many setbacks. The biggest one was money. Couldn't afford a nice place like I used to see in the movies. I apologize to whoever's reading this. English is not my mother tongue, so to communicate in the U.S., I had to learn it the hard way. I tried pretty hard to learn. I'm still trying. Not only that, but it affects me. The mold, I mean. At first, it took a bite of everything I had. Took a bite of my brain, it seems. The mold took a bite of my journal, the pages, the cover. They also have spots. Black ones, white ones, green ones, pink ones. Then the mold ate everything. My clothes, my documents, my home appliances, what little furniture I had. I'm sleeping on the floor now, wearing the same shirt all day, every day. The damp, cold floor. Fearing that the mold can reach my lungs more easily this way. I hear people coughing. Neighbors. Funny to think that even though Mary Old said the building was full of people, I've never seen anyone. Miss Old. Is she also affected? My thoughts are so confused. I had the idea of writing this journal to keep track of time, to keep my mind from drifting away too far. It worked at first. It isn't working now, though. My mind feels foggy. Let's start again. To save money, I had to deal with trade-offs, so a cheap rent was my top priority. It's only for a little while, I told myself. Soon I'll make it big and move into a nice room in Malibu or Beverly Hills. That's what I kept saying to myself. Anyway, I found this room at a very low price. The building looks as good as it gets for a cheap rental property. Soon as I stepped into the building, I felt dizzy. The air was stale and heavy. It smelled of dampness, of mold. I didn't mind too much at the time. As I said, I was on a budget. Upon seeing me accompanied by the real estate agent, the building manager came. She was a tall woman with a strange face and a disheveled look, probably in her mid-30s. She wore a black t-shirt and yoga pants. Her light brown wavy hair was tied in a messy ponytail, her face contorted in a mixed-up expression of tiredness and malice, the witch stereotype. But she had a nice ass, that was undebatable. Under her eyes, I could also notice black spots. She had a panda look. At the time, I thought she was working too hard. Now I know better. She introduced herself as Mary Oldman. Mary Old. M-O-L-D. If I knew then what I know now. My mind is drifting again now. I'm hungry. I still have food, but I won't dare eat it. I've noticed a few black spots on the bread, in the eggs, even the peanut butter has spots. The water tastes damp. Even the coffee tastes damp. Coffee. Good old dark coffee. Good old mold. I wake up with my face against the journal. My face itches terribly. It took 3 or 4 steps for me to reach the bathroom. I wash my face with water. Still itches. I wash my face with soap and water. I do it twice. My face still itches. I can't stop myself. My fingernails are too long. I forgot to trim them, so now I'm scratching my face. It hurts. It bleeds, but it won't stop itching. Vinegar. I saw it on the internet. Vinegar is good for eliminating mold. I still have some vinegar. 4 more steps and I reach the kitchen. Thank God the bottle is still full. I splash the vinegar all over my face. It feels like fire. Try as hard as I can to avoid crying, but I just can't. Oh God, I cry, before everything goes black. I wake up again. I open my eyes, but everything is still dark. Did I go blind? I've heard that mold can leave you blind. Soon I realized that it's just nighttime. I didn't have the time to turn on the lights, and the ceiling is covered by the blackest mold I've ever seen. So dark. Not only the ceiling, but the walls too. Everything is pitch black. My face isn't itching anymore. Thank God for that. Vinegar. Perhaps the vinegar can help me fight the mold, but I've tried that before. I did, and I ended up in bed with a hell of a fever for 3 straight weeks. It was then that I lost my 2 jobs. How long since then? I mean, for how long have I been unemployed? Am I paying my rent? If so, then how? No matter. I have to try. I must try. I grab the bottle of vinegar and splash all of its contents on the living room wall. The mold starts to melt, slowly falling from the wall. For a moment, I think I hear a shriek, as if the mold was some sort of wounded animal. It shrieks and contorts. It must be my imagination. Moist. All of a sudden, the mold is gone. It had left a few scars, a few grayish spots here and there, but overall, it's gone. I couldn't even remember the color of the wall, but now I can see it clear. It's green. I hear a knocking at my door. I also hear voices. Someone is calling me. The voice is familiar. It's her. Old. What time is it now? What is she doing knocking on my door at night? I forgot when the last time I paid the rent was. Is she bringing my eviction notice? No, a person can't be evicted during the night. Or so I think. Old is still knocking. I finally opened up. First, I couldn't even recognize her. Mary Old had her hair loose, falling over her shoulder. Her eyes are bright with light, and I only know they're green as the wall. Her lips are covered in pink gloss. She's fully naked. I've always wanted you, Mary Old whispers before kissing me. Her kiss tastes of cherry. I embrace Mary Old, feeling her breasts squeeze against my chest. I lay on the floor with her on top of me and begin to strip my shirt. As soon as I get rid of it, Mary Old and I kiss again. I embrace her even tighter this time. Now I feel her against my bare skin. Wait, am I writing a journal? Now her kisses taste damp. I open my eyes. I'm alone again, lying on the floor in front of the wall, the same one I splashed with vinegar. The bottle's by my side, but I can't smell the vinegar. I can't smell anything. I hear people coughing hard. I hear a thumping sound as if someone had just fallen. It comes from the room above mine. I see small particles falling from my ceiling, like a bunch of ashes, like black snow. I close my eyes. Mold can make you blind, but I can't avoid inhaling it. Feels like being hit by a truck. I hear knocks on my door. I hear an unfamiliar voice calling my name. Mary Old. She's coughing too, so much she can barely speak a full sentence. Now, Mary Old is coughing too much to even speak, and her knocks are weaker, farther between. I wish I could open the door to her, but I feel so dizzy. My body weighs a ton. I can't speak either. Even breathing is almost impossible now. Now there's no knocking, only a thump. Did she fall? I apologize to whoever is reading this. English is not my mother tongue. Everything's dark now. Is Mary Old okay? Old. Mold.